Good morning, this is Paul Turner, the Immigration Barrister at Imperium Chambers. Thank you for choosing my channel. Please subscribe and hit the notification button to keep up to date with all immigration news as it happens. Today I am following up on the recent successful petition, as it were, for amnesty, or an amnesty for undocumented migrants that have been in the United Kingdom. Fantastic news that we've hit the 100,000 target. That means the matter will be debated in Parliament. The question then is when. From what I can read and what I've seen, it's likely to be debated in Parliament towards the end of June. And the sooner the better, in my opinion. And this will give various MPs the opportunity to put to the government, and in particular Boris Johnson, if he is going to live up to his word and grant an amnesty. So it's important that you speak to your MP and push them as far as you can. I know I've written to a few myself, because this is the best chance of getting the matter out in the open, which is where it needs to start. Secondly, does this mean we're necessarily going to get an amnesty? It may not, it probably won't mean it one will follow the following day, but it is a progressive step in the right direction, and it lets the government know that it is not something they can carry on ignoring. Well, if they are going to, the next question obviously would be like, when? Now, that answer is really how long is a piece of string? But if I was to take an educated guess, it would be after the furore of Brexit has died down and they realise that there are a lot of EU nationals still living here who previously could live here lawfully, and after the pandemic is finally under control and the country is safe. Then obviously will matters return to normal as for government, and that will obviously be difficult for Priti Patel, because the various failings and court rulings and reports against her will get more press, and as we all know, the Prime Minister likes the media, and from what I hear is not impressed with Priti Patel's attempts to control immigration. Rather than adopting a liberal approach, she seems to crack down even harder. Now, that then turns to the other issue of if there was an amnesty, who would qualify. Now, that's something that I cannot say what would happen in the future. If I could lay my hands on a crystal ball and tell you it's going to happen on such a date and these people will apply, then I would have done so. However, the government will have to set some criteria or conditions to be met if they roll out, if not an amnesty, they may call it a legacy scheme. Now, my own thoughts are that if they do get round to regularising the migrants, which is something that I pray they do, that they will run something similar to what's called the legacy scheme, which ran between 2006 and 2011. And to be granted leave on that basis, all you needed to be was in the United Kingdom for 6 years, be a failed asylum seeker, and not have committed any offences that crossed the criminal casework directorate threshold. So people that are convicted some offences, less than a year I think it was, were still granted under the old legacy or amnesty scheme. So the key thing that I take out of this, because Boris has talked about amnesties from 5 years to 10 years to 12 years. As usual with him, he changes his mind as he changes his underpants, which is fairly often. Well, I hope he does. So the key factor will be that if the government does announce a form of legacy scheme or amnesty scheme, they're not going to want to use it as a magnet for people to suddenly appear in the United Kingdom or say they've been living in the United Kingdom. Because one of the government's main arguments against an amnesty is that it encourages people to come to the United Kingdom and just wait. Whereas the purpose of the amnesty that's being put forward is to deal with people that are already here and have been here for a long period of time and are contributing to the United Kingdom. So it will be necessary for any individual to be able to establish that they have been in the United Kingdom for a fair period of time. Now, essentially that involves engaging with the Home Office, or at least letting them know that you're still alive and in the UK. Now, there are a number of ways you can do that. You can either make a further application, get your lawyer to write to the Home Office to see if there's any updates, or if you're on reporting conditions, please carry on reporting. I know it's stressful, I know it's unpleasant, but it is vital if you are going to be counted as being here. it will be very easy, as some people have discovered under the 20-year route or the old 14-year route, for the government to say, well, you just haven't provided enough evidence of continued residence, even though the person doesn't have a passport and can't in any reality travel out of the United Kingdom. So in short, whilst things look as if they are moving in the right direction, whilst in my view the timing is coming up to being right, it's not right now, given, as I say, with the fallout with Brexit, the end of the US scheme, and obviously the pandemic. There will be a time where focus is more put on the Home Office and its failings than there is at the moment. Then there will be a need to deal with this issue. And as I say, the government is likely, in my experience, to treat people who suddenly appear and say, I've been living here for a long period of time, with a degree of caution. As I say, the previous legacy scheme, individuals claimed asylum, so there was a record of them arriving, entering, being interviewed, photographed, etc. And then generally an appeal and maybe another couple of applications. So it wasn't difficult. So this also factors into my last point. There are probably several thousand people out there, if not 10,000 or 15,000 people, who would get a visa under even these terrible immigration rules because of the amount of time they spent in the United Kingdom, because they have families in the United Kingdom, and perhaps because of that they're suffering from some illness, whether that be physical or mental. Indeed, I've often found that quite a lot of people who do not think they have a case actually have a case. It's a combination of either fear, so they've just not gone to a lawyer, or going to a very bad lawyer who has not identified key reasons to stay in the United Kingdom. So the first thing I would do if I was in someone's situation where they're undocumented and they're living in fear and they're subject to the hostile environment is to contact a lawyer and get an honest opinion as to their immigration status. You may have a valid application that you can make now and take yourself and your family out of the misery of the hostile environment. Or your lawyer may tell you, well, actually, there's nothing much that can be done at the moment, but we'll notify the Home Office that you're still here, ask them for an update on your case. So there are things that can be done. And and I pray that something is announced, I am almost certain that there will be a residency criteria. There'll also be a criminality criteria, and these will need to be met for people to get there. So people that have simply just been hiding and then hoping, if they suddenly appear, then the government will take the not unreasonable view that they might have arrived on the last ferry and then said, oh, I've been living in the UK for a long period of time. And the government will not like that, will probably not allow it, because, as I say, they will see that as a reason for other people just to make their way here, and then they'll get a visa without meeting the government's rules. The last thing I would say is that any type of amnesty or legacy scheme version 2 is likely to be accompanied by a change to the immigration rules. Given the way that this government has operated, it seems to me that they will give with one hand and take away with the other. We've seen that with India. 3,000 people from India can come and study to the United Kingdom. Sounds fantastic. But in reality, the Home Office can remove far more than 3,000 people if this is ever put into place. So there will, if there is a pill, the government will sweeten it for its supporters by probably announcing more or stricter immigration rules, or a revision of the immigration rules. So they can say, well, look, this is a mess in the past, we need to deal with it, but in future, we're going to be a lot harder. Personally, I don't object to that course of action as long as they deal with the backlog of people that are in the United Kingdom fairly. And then other people that come to the UK will know what to expect. Knowing what to expect from this government is rather like trying to nail a jelly to the wall. If you've ever tried it, you'll end up with a mess on the floor and a hole in your wall. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I thought I would sum up my thoughts on where we are with an amnesty and what needs to be done. But as an individual, if you're hoping for one or you've pinned your hopes on one, then you are going to need to establish that you have been in the United Kingdom. And as I say, for the final time, you may well already have a good case. I've had people turn up here who have children that were born in the United Kingdom 11 or 12 years ago. The children qualify for British nationality, and yet because of the hostile environment, because of the fear that's been engendered, they simply haven't come forward. So, in short, what I would say to you is, firstly, if you're uncertain about your immigration status, do go and see your lawyer. Get the up-to-date picture about your case, as well as the overall situation in respect of whether you are on the system and whether you would qualify for an amnesty if one is, and when one is, hopefully, announced in the United Kingdom. I think the last thing I would say is that whatever it's called, while it might look like an amnesty, it may smell like an amnesty, it may quack like an amnesty, the government will use any other word but the word amnesty. So the key thing will be to see whether it is effectively an amnesty, and most importantly, that you qualify for it. So I would not sit in silence and live in fear and suffer. I would get in touch with a reputable immigration lawyer. You can talk to me or anyone to get an up-to-date situation or advice on your status in the United Kingdom. To live in ignorance is to live in misery, and that's something that I really don't want you or anyone to do. I hope you've enjoyed this amnesty roundup video, if you like. I've done a lot of shorter videos. Please again subscribe to my channel, and please contact me if I can assist you in or any family members immigration matter. Thank you very much for watching. This is Paul Turner, the Immigration Barrister at Imperium Chambers.